Skeletons of the Marital Closet by Tang. Chapter 1541. Why? Joshua asked. Gale nervously replied, He's upset because I hid your identity from him. Right now, I want to eliminate any possible leverage he could use against me. Oh, I see. Yes, good boy. You can call me Mommy for now. Once his anger subsides, you can call me any endearing term you like. If Shawn hears Joshua calling her Big Beauty repeatedly, he might misunderstand and she would have to console him again. Gale did not actually specifically instruct Joshua to address her that way just to conceal his identity. Joshua insisted on calling her Big Beauty himself. He had called her that ever since he could speak. However, Gale was concerned that Shawn would not believe it, so she made Joshua change the way he addressed her. I understand. So you're afraid of him? What do you mean afraid? I'm just trying to have a harmonious family. Big Beauty, what should I do with you? What's wrong? What did I do? Can't you stand up for yourself? Are you afraid of what he will do? You're my mommy. Regardless of what I call you, I just like calling you Big Beauty, Joshua asked. Joshua coolly nodded. During the days when my identity was still concealed, calling you Big Beauty did save you a lot of trouble. A while ago, he would never be allowed to call Gale Mommy. His identity would have been discovered long ago. What should he call her then? Gale? Or Aunt Gale? It sounded awkward. He could never bring himself to say it, and Gale felt uncomfortable hearing it. Big Beauty sounded nice, and it naturally diverted the attention. Yes, but it's not necessary. Joshua, can you please call me Mommy? Your dad is frightening when he is angry, Gale said pleasingly. How frightening is he? You can't imagine, Joshua asked. He isn't a flesh-eating monster, is he? Gale thought for a moment. Yes, he really would symbolically eat her. However, how could she explain it to a child? He won't eat you. What are you afraid of? Joshua looked indifferent. Big Beauty, you can't act this way. You need to find a way to rise and defend your status in the family. How can you let him step all over you? The head of the family must be Mommy. When Mommy is happy, the whole family is happy and vice versa. Joshua thought for a moment before continuing. If he's angry, you should be angry too. You need to outlast him. Fight poison with poison. Besides, women are good at finding fault. If he says something wrong, you immediately, Gale covered his mouth. What was he thinking about? How could she be angry with Shawn? She did not even have the chance to apologize. If it were not for Joshua still injured, she would have smacked him a few times. I'm begging you, Joshua, my son, my heart, my sweet darling. Joshua was about to faint, quickly nodding. Gale let go of her hand. Joshua quickly surrendered. I'll change. You act normal, Big Beauty. Mommy, he said, trying to change his way of addressing her. Gale was satisfied. Yes, keep it up. Chapter 1542. Joshua looked at her disdainfully. You have to fight back a little. Let's not fight this battle. There will be plenty of opportunities and time in the future. Let's talk about my status after this ordeal is over. Honestly, she was in the wrong, and it was better to humble herself this time. Joshua sighed. Well, I had hoped that you and Uncle Aram could be together. He was muffled again. Gale listened in shock and terror, her soul almost escaping her body. My dear son, you must never say such things again, especially not in front of your dad. Her mistake was not just hiding Joshua's identity, she also lied about loving Aram. This was something she needed to explain to Shawn as well. She said that out of anger and lied just to get a divorce. Uncle Aram and I are not going to be together. Don't make up stories. I'm still married to your dad, Gale said. Joshua pulled down her hand and said, Are you saying that I can only set you up with Uncle Aram if you divorce Shawn? She was speechless. Is it true? Your dad and I won't divorce, Gale replied. Joshua asked, Then what about Uncle Aram? He's single now. His former fiancée Natalie is a bad woman. You even rejected him. If he can't handle it, something might happen. Let's talk about it later. Gale waved her hand, feeling a headache. She did not take Joshua seriously, thinking Aram had nothing to be upset about. He was elegant and smart. Gale had no idea that Joshua's words would become true someday. Uncle Aram is really a good man. If I see a suitable girl in the future, I'll introduce her to him, Joshua said. When he stayed at Aram's house, Aram took care of him and kept him company. He was grateful. At that time, Joshua had just arrived at the unfamiliar place, unable to acknowledge his mom and unable to play with his sister. He felt really lonely, and Aram gave him warmth. Yes, Uncle Aram is very good. She would need to be knowledgeable, gentle, and virtuous, Gale sighed sincerely. Joshua replied, Aren't you describing yourself? Shawn sure is lucky. I hope he understands and treats you well. Phew. Gale found it both amusing and exasperating. However, seeing him act so playful indicated that his injuries were not affecting him severely. If he were really injured badly, Joshua would not be speaking so clearly and coherently. I'm serious. If Shawn is even a bit unkind to you, I won't agree to this marriage, Joshua said. We're already married. Moreover, when we got married, you didn't even exist. Chapter 1543. Gale smiled and patted his head. Joshua, your dad has successfully passed my test. I am sure he is someone worth spending a lifetime with. I chose him, and I believe in my judgment. Are you really not considering Uncle Aram? He and I have fate but not destiny. She had never liked Aram. Initially, she considered him a benefactor, then a friend, and now she saw him as family. Aram would be an important person in her life, but not as a lover. Oh, what a pity. Destiny. Joshua shook his head repeatedly. Yes, Aram and I go back more than 20 years. Big beauty. Oh no, Mommy, I meant the destiny between you and Shawn. Gale sighed. Joshua lay on the hospital bed, looking like he was fully recovered. Joshua, did you have nightmares? Did you dream of Natalie holding a knife at you? Gale asked tentatively. No, who do you think I am? How could that scare me? That's good. You are as strong as your dad's, frighteningly strong. But the dreams I have now are all about that uncle who descended from the sky. Joshua suddenly clapped his hands, excitedly almost bouncing off the bed. He's so handsome, incredibly cool, tall, mighty, and brave. He parachuted down to my side. Then, with a swift kick, he directly kicked Natalie back into the ward. He's my lifesaver. He's my hero. If it weren't for him, I would have been a goner long ago. With that, Joshua grabbed Gale's hand. I lost a lot of blood and don't remember it very clearly. Mommy, who is that uncle? Where is he now? I want to see him. He saved me. At that time, Joshua had lost a lot of blood and was in a semi-comatose state. He only remembered the dark figure appearing with a safety rope. He was agile and decisive. Then he was swept into Shawn's arms. He did not recall what happened afterward. Seeing Gale silent, he felt a tightness in his chest. The uncle won't be in trouble, right? Did he sacrifice himself to save me? He fell with Natalie. Joshua's mouth hung open, frozen. What? The uncle who saved him and Natalie perished together? Natalie managed to kill someone? Fortunately, he's still alive, but Natalie died on the spot. Now he's in the intensive care unit, still in critical condition, Gale said. Joshua sighed in relief. Could you have said that faster? You scared me. His situation is critical. He is hanging on a line. We don't know if he will make it. Don't worry. Your dad and I will do our best to save him. Who is he, Mommy? Is he Shawn's private bodyguard? Joshua asked. Yeah, his name is Pearton. Is Uncle Pearton the best and most formidable among the bodyguards? That's why he was sent to rescue me? Gale looked into his eyes and said, Joshua, Pearton is the bravest among many bodyguards. He once protected me and served as my personal bodyguard. Now, he has protected you. She reflected on how no good deed ever goes unnoticed. Chapter 1544. 4 years ago, Pearton was assigned to be Gale's bodyguard, a job none of the bodyguards wanted to. It was a thankless task, prone to trouble, and everyone avoided it. However, Pearton took on the role and served her wholeheartedly. Gale, in return, used all her power to send him away before she jumped into the sea, hoping he would not face punishment because of her. 4 years later, Pearton reappeared and saved her son. If Gale had not protected Pearton when she faked her death and left him behind yesterday, Pearton might not have stepped forward to save her son. He'll get better. When I get better, I want to be his apprentice and learn how to fight from him. That way, I can better protect you, Joshua said. Gale sighed. Joshua, I hope when you're protecting me, you prioritize your own safety first. Don't sacrifice yourself to protect me. Do you understand? If something happens to you, your daddy, Nicole, and I will be devastated. Have you thought about that? Before saving others, protect yourself first. Joshua pouted. There was no other way, and the bad woman happened to agree to exchange hostages, so I thought of saving you first. I plan to figure out a way to save myself later. Unexpectedly, he underestimated the bad woman, who was vigilant and did not give him a chance to escape. Joshua raised his voice and said, If it happened again, I would still do the same. You're not listening, huh? Because I want to protect you. I have to. Besides me, who else can protect you? Joshua emphasized. Gale was about to respond when a low, magnetic voice came from the door. Me. They looked up. Shawn, impeccably dressed in a shirt and trousers, walked in with a commanding presence. He was carrying breakfast, creating a stark contrast to his elite appearance. In the past, Shawn would never be seen carrying a breakfast tray. Now, he willingly did so. I'll protect her. Why didn't you think of me? Joshua retorted defiantly. But you weren't there. She didn't let me accompany her to the hospital. She insisted I go back to work. As soon as he received the call, Shawn rushed over. Gale nodded. Joshua, what he said is true. I didn't expect that to happen, so I asked him to return to work. But not just this time. In the past, you were never there when she needed you the most. Shawn's lips slightly pursed. He understood what he meant. He was never in Joshua and Nicole's lives. Raising 2 children alone was tough and challenging for Gale. Shawn was in his city, never doing a thing for her and the kids. He had been absent for 4 years, missing the birth of the children and their growth. The atmosphere became a bit awkward. Gale stood up and changed the topic to break the awkward silence. You're here. Is this breakfast for me? Yes, I instructed the kitchen to prepare your favorite breakfast. Shawn replied in a low voice. Perfect, I'm starving. Shawn opened the food containers and arranged them on the table one by one, then handed her a pair of cutlery. What about Joshua? Can he eat? Shawn asked softly. Chapter 1445. He can only have liquids. I brought porridge. Shawn had already thought ahead, so he specifically instructed the kitchen to make the best porridge with premium, hand-picked oats. Gale was a bit surprised. So considerate of you, because in the past 4 years, I wasn't there when you needed me the most. So I plan to make amends from now on, not just for 4 years, but for 40 years until I'm no longer here, Shawn replied. Gale glanced at Joshua and then tugged at Shawn's sleeve, speaking softly. Did his words affect you? Gale, he was right. I should reflect upon it instead of avoiding it. She didn't know what else to say and lowered her head to eat. Shawn carried the porridge and walked to the bedside. Although they had seen each other countless times before, this time they truly met as father and son. Both of them felt a strange emotion in their hearts, and no one spoke first. Moreover, neither of them initiated the conversation. Gale occasionally looked in their direction, curious to see how the father and son would communicate. 2 peas in a pod, one colder and prouder than the other. While Joshua remained silent, he thought, Shawn hasn't called me his son or coaxed me. He hasn't shown any fatherly instinct. I won't be the first to call him my daddy. I remember how he treated me before. Shawn, not saying anything, did not know how to start. In the past, he had always seen Joshua as a mischievous child. However, the mischievous child turned out to be his own. So, what should he say? Son, have you had your breakfast? No way. Have you eaten? Does it still hurt? That sounded a bit forced. After a long while, Shawn finally spoke. Eat. He scooped up a spoonful of porridge, gently blew on it, and held it to Joshua. Joshua did not eat. Shawn repeated, Eat. I can eat by myself. It's awkward for a grown man to feed another. Joshua turned his head. He was not used to it. Actually, Shawn was not used to it either. Should he do nothing and just place the porridge in front of Joshua? Another period of silence fell between them. Unable to watch any more, Gale said, Let me do it. Otherwise, the porridge would get cold, and Joshua would not have taken a single bite. She just put down the spoon to stand up when they said simultaneously, No need, no need. Gale stood in place. Sit down, sit down. Chapter 1546. Gale could not help but sit back down and watch the two. What exactly were they going to do? Eat. Open your mouth, Shawn said. I can eat by myself. Shawn glanced at the IV drip connected to the back of his hand. Are you sure you can eat by yourself? I'll wait for Big Beauty. Wait for Mommy to finish eating. Then she can feed me, Joshua said. Shawn raised an eyebrow slightly. Mommy? Yeah, she's my mommy. What's the problem with that? You used to call her Big Beauty, right? Gale frantically signaled to Joshua. Joshua, being clever, immediately said, I can call whatever I want. If I feel like calling her Big Beauty or Mommy, I will. Shawn responded lightly. This is the first time I've heard you call her that. That means you haven't seen us enough. I definitely call her Mommy more than Big Beauty. The times I call her Big Beauty are fewer. Joshua had inherited Shawn's natural talent for lying. Shawn gave a faint snort. You used to call her Big Beauty to hide your identity, right? Now that your identity is exposed, she let you call her mommy again, didn't she? Joshua paused for a second. Immediately he retorted, "No, don't make baseless guesses. I can call her whatever I want. Nobody tells me what to do." Shawn snorted again. The 1 second hesitation was enough for him to see through Joshua's made-up story. He had seen Joshua many times and had never heard him call Gale mommy even once. Gale felt so embarrassed and awkward. Originally, she thought that if Joshua changed his way of addressing her, it might make Shawn a little happier. Otherwise, calling her Big Beauty all the time made Joshua seem less like her son. However, she ended up shooting herself in the foot. Shawn was not fooled and even saw through her deliberate attempt to make Joshua change his way of addressing her. What to do? "It seems that you've been awake for quite some time and had talked it through," Shawn said mildly. Great. He had started to be sarcastic again. "Joshua calling me mommy is perfectly reasonable. You should talk to him if you want him to continue calling me Big Beauty. After all, it's just a title. It doesn't change the fact that he is our son." Shawn nodded slightly. "Yes, just a title. When you kept his identity hidden, he called you Big Beauty. Now, he called you Mommy." Gale pouted but could not refute him. She could only continue eating breakfast in silence. She ate her frustration away. Chapter 1547. Shawn slowly stirred the porridge in his hand, glancing at Joshua. Joshua obediently opened his mouth. Shawn was irritated. If Joshua annoyed him further, Shawn might not do anything to him, but his poor mommy would bear the brunt of his anger. Being a son was truly challenging. Shawn fed Joshua, and Joshua ate each spoonful earnestly. The hospital room fell into an eerie silence. Before long, Joshua had consumed most of the porridge. Gil saw it and thought it would take them forever to get used to each other. Maybe she, as the mother, needed to step in to foster their bond. She walked to the bedside and sat down. "You couldn't be with your dad before, and it's my fault. You've met Daddy many times, but couldn't call him your dad." Unexpectedly, Joshua shook his head. "No, it's not your fault. It's Daddy's." Shawn paused. Joshua explained logically. "He didn't provide you with enough security or manage to earn your complete trust. He was absent during Nicole and I's first years. Mommy, you've done well. You're a great mother. You always blame yourself, thinking that you didn't bring me back to the Wood family to enjoy the honor and status that come with the association. You've apologized many times, and I tell you it's okay every time. I understand why you hid my identity, and I know I'm your way out. I willingly chose to stay with you. Even if Nicole had stayed in the Wood family, you still have the option to take me away. I want to be with you willingly." Joshua made the atmosphere grim. However, he swiftly changed the tone, sounding cheerful. "Of course, luckily Daddy is acceptable. He managed to win you back and saved me in time. If you choose to stay with him and spend the rest of your life together, then I'll reluctantly play the role of the Wood family's young master." His tone and expression made it seem like being the Wood family's young master was a great burden. He sounded remarkably like Shawn. To outsiders, the place of the Wood family's young master was desired. Joshua's starting point at birth was the destination others strived for their entire lives. The wealth, the inheritance, and the company were enough to set him up for life. "He could never spend all the money he had," Gale responded. Yes. What a burden it is to be a young master. Thank you for your understanding." "Don't mention it. I'm also your son for the first time, and I have no experience. Thank you for your patience all these years. Although you often twisted my ears, I have thick skin and got used to it." Gale chuckled at the exchange. Shawn, in his usual calm manner, said, "I'm also a husband and father for the first time. I'll continue what I'm doing well and improve where I fall short." He was never good at expressing himself verbally and preferred proving through actions. Gale understood. She believed Shawn would be a good father. He was already good to Nicole. He was gentle, patient, and never loud or angry. Though he smoked, he never did it in front of Nicole, an image of a loving father. However, raising a daughter and raising a son were different. An old saying went, "Daughters should be raised in wealth, while sons should be raised in poverty." Chapter 1548. Gale pondered over Shawn's usual attitude toward Joshua and suddenly felt a chill. They never quite got along. Could their relationship improve just because they were related? Considering Joshua's mischievous nature, she sometimes could not resist disciplining him, let alone Shawn. Joshua's eyes darted around. "When I was living with the Lefting family, I overheard the servants gossiping. They said the Wood family is the wealthiest family in the entire city. The combined wealth of the Lefting and Yarn families doesn't even compare to a half of the Wood family's fortune." "Daddy, is that true?" "It's true. He was really wealthy. There was no need to hide it. Besides, he saw no reason to hide the family's wealth from his children. Every parent wants to provide the best for their children. Then, as your son, can I inherit your position and wealth in the future?" asked Joshua. "Yes," replied Shawn. Joshua's eyes lit up. "How many billion is it worth, Daddy? I think you're a bit stingy." "Me? Stingy?" Shawn heard someone call him stingy for the first time. "Yeah, when the bad woman kidnapped me, you only offered her so little. Come on, it should be at least $400 million. "That's a lot." Joshua asked, "How much is the Wood family's wealth worth?" "In the billions," Shawn blurted out. "Billions? Then I should at least be worth a third of that. $400 million is too low. I need to raise my value," Joshua insisted. "When you grow up and take over my business, all of it will be under your management," Shawn suggested. Joshua thought for a moment before saying, "That sounds about right. With such a vast family business, only a smart son like me can handle it. Nicole couldn't do it. She's too soft-hearted and easily deceived. She won't manage the company. She can hire someone for that," Shawn explained. "But what if the person she hires is unreliable? She'll get married, have a husband, and he'll help her manage. What if her husband mistreats her and takes away the property? Her husband will be someone personally chosen by me and Gale." "Are you sure he won't change for the worse with all this money?" Joshua's insight at such a young age surprised Gale. "Can you give Nicole more credit?" Gale could not bear it. "I'm just assuming. It's not real. She should remain a carefree princess. Managing the company and inheriting the family business is a burden, and I'm here to shoulder it," Joshua replied. "Yeah, she's a princess, and you—" "I'm a young master. I'm Nicole's older brother," Joshua interrupted. "You're her subordinate, the one managing the company for her," Shawn calmly interjected. Joshua was stunned. "What do you mean?" "Most of Wood Group's shares have already been transferred to Nicole. Contracts are signed, and lawyers have witnessed it. Unless she willingly transfers the shares to you, she will be forever the largest shareholder of Wood Group." Joshua looked at Gale, wondering if that was true. Chapter 1549. He would not get anything? Gale nodded. I was there when they signed the contract. The light in Joshua's eyes dimmed. Biased? You're biased. You favor girls over boys. Why am I reduced to being Nicole's little employee? Joshua kept yelling. Others were biased toward boys over girls. In this family, it was the complete opposite. Joshua was very dissatisfied. He wanted to protest. It wasn't about the shares or the money. He was dissatisfied with Shawn's actions. Why was everything given to Nicole? She would boast about it in front of him in the future. Our shares are yours and Nicole's. We're all family. Why so calculative? Shawn asked. Would Nicole exploit you? She would. Despite Nicole's innocent appearance, there was a little devil inside her. Joshua knew his sister too well. He would be exploited for a lifetime. Then be good to her. Maybe if she's in a good mood, she'll give you some shares, Shawn suggested. Joshua was speechless. All right, Shawn, stop teasing him. Gale patted Joshua's head. Don't listen to your daddy. Everything is fair. There's no bias toward Nicole. But the shares are all in her name. Gale earnestly asked. Do you care about that? I don't care. I would even agree to give all the shares to Nicole. The problem is, you should ask for my opinion before you do so, Joshua said. He did not want money, shares, or wealth. He wanted respect and understanding because he was also a part of the family. Gale smiled and nodded. I thought you had your values messed up. It seemed like you cared more about money than family. All significant decisions in this family require 4 votes, 1 for each of us. How can you ignore my vote? Joshua said. Okay, it's her mistake. It won't happen again, Gale assured. Joshua rolled his eyes. The shares aren't all under Nicole's name. Nicole is still a minor. Even if the shares are transferred to her, I still have the final say in them. So the majority of Wood Group shares are currently in my name, Gale explained in detail. When you and Nicole come of age, I'll distribute these shares. Your dad was just joking with you. Don't take it seriously, Joshua snorted. I don't believe you. He would definitely do so in the future. He favors girls over boys. He likes Nicole more than me. That's not true, Joshua. All right, Mommy, don't explain on behalf of Daddy. I knew it. Gale was stunned. Knew what? Dad doesn't like me. Every time I play with Nicole, he gives me the stink eye. He stares at me as if he doesn't like me but can't get rid of me, Joshua said. He bought an entire amusement park for Nicole. When Nicole invited me to play, he wasn't too happy. As long as I'm close to Nicole, he will chase me away, as if I'm some virus that can infect Nicole. Chapter 1550. Joshua became more and more agitated as he spoke. Mommy, didn't you notice? I was confused at the time. Although I and Shawn weren't on the same age, I had a good relationship with Nicole. I wouldn't even harm Nicole, so why was he always on guard against me? Gale coughed. Well, how should she explain that? Even Shawn cleared his throat awkwardly. At that time, he did not know Nicole and Joshua were siblings. He thought Joshua was a smooth-talking playboy trying to win Nicole's heart. As a protective father, he had to ensure his precious daughter's safety. He could not let Joshua deceive Nicole at such a young age, so Shawn disapproved of Joshua. Unexpectedly, they were siblings. They had grown up together, as familiar as can be. It turned out Shawn, in his busybody nature, had worried for nothing. In his defense, he had no idea Joshua was Nicole's real brother. Shawn, tell me, even if you didn't know I was your son, Nicole and I were classmates. Why shouldn't I be allowed near her? Shawn was tongue-tied. He did not know how to respond and could only look to Gale for help. Gale shrugged. She could not help him either. I told you privately that Joshua is fine. You didn't listen and insisted on thinking the worst of him. I can't help since you are so close-minded, Gale grumbled. Shawn spoke in a low voice. You know they're siblings, but I didn't. I just wanted to protect Nicole. In the end, I became the villain and a fool. Gale shivered. He turned it against her. It was because she hid Joshua's identity that Shawn misunderstood the relationship between Joshua and Nicole, thinking they might have been romantically involved. She quickly explained. Joshua, Daddy, Nicole was under a spell. He was excessively worried and nervous. He went crazy. Joshua looked like he did not believe that pathetic excuse. Gale was making frantic gestures with her eyes at him. Whether he believed it or not, he had to. It's all in the past. Don't dwell on it. From now on, the four of us will live together, which is more important than anything else. Joshua, you can openly call him Daddy now, just like Nicole, Gale said. Let go of the past? Gale held Joshua's hand on one side and Shawn's on the other before putting them together. Shawn and Joshua stared at each other. After a few seconds, Joshua turned his head. I can't say it. He was used to calling Shawn, Shawn, or handsome uncle. Suddenly asking him to call him Daddy was awkward. Shawn's eyes dimmed for a moment, but he did not say anything. In fact, I have a good impression of Shawn. When we were in the small town, I thought he was tall and handsome for the first time I saw him. I thought it would be great if this person could be my daddy, Joshua said. Shawn also remembered.